The room was cold. It felt like no one had smiled in there for a long time. The walls were plain and white like a blank piece of paper. The lights above gave off a soft buzzing sound. They made everything look pale and still. From the next room you could hear the soft beeping sound of a heart machine going beep, beep, beep. It mixed with the quiet sound of papers moving as Dr. Avery flipped through his notes. Lila Hayes sat on the hospital bed. The paper beneath her made crinkly noises every time she moved. But she didn't move now. She sat very still. Her hands were tight fists in her lap. She already knew what the doctor was going to say. She could tell by his voice. She had heard it before, soft, slow, and careful like someone trying not to hurt a butterfly. "The treatment is working," Dr. Avery said. There was a small bit of hope in his voice, like a tiny light. But then he stopped. He looked down at his notes. Then he looked back up and said, "You will need at least 2 more rounds of chemotherapy." Lila didn't cry. She didn't even blink. She had gotten used to hearing hard things. Her days were already full of pain, tiredness, and feeling sick. She had gotten used to it. But what came next was harder. "I understand your family is struggling with the costs," Dr. Avery said, his voice soft and kind. "Without insurance, the treatments will cost a lot. I'm so sorry." Next to Lila, her mom made a tiny sound like a hiccup. Lila didn't look at her, but she knew. Her mom was trying not to cry. Their family had been running out of money for a long time now. They had used up their savings. The last round of treatment had already cost them almost everything. And now they had to pay for more. But they had nothing left. The car ride home was very quiet. No one talked. The air inside the car felt heavy like a big blanket no one could lift. Lila's mom held the steering wheel so tightly her hands were white. She didn't look left or right, just straight ahead as if she didn't want to stop driving. Lila's dad tried to speak. His voice was rough and tired. "Everything will be okay," he said. But Lila knew he didn't believe it. And neither did she. That night, Lila lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Her heart was beating fast. Her brain wouldn't stop spinning. She didn't want to be the reason her family lost everything. She didn't want her parents to be buried in bills because of her. And then, like a quiet whisper in the dark, she had a thought. Art. Painting. Painting had always made her feel calm. It was like magic. When the world was too loud or too sad, painting helped her feel okay. It was something she could control when everything else felt out of control. Maybe, just maybe, her paintings could help. Maybe she could sell them. Maybe people would want to buy her art. Maybe she could help her family in her own way. The next morning, Lila had made up her mind. She wasn't going to wait for someone to help her. She was going to try and help herself. The air outside was cool. It smelled like fresh coffee and wet sidewalks. Lila set up a small table on the sidewalk downtown. Cars drove by honking. People walked fast with coffee cups in their hands. No one stopped. The world moved quickly and most people didn't notice her. Her mom stood beside her. She helped set up the easel and gently placed the paintings on the table. Her mom's hands shook a little. Lila saw the question in her eyes even though she didn't ask it out loud. Would this work? Lila looked at her paintings. She had put so much of herself into them. Bright colors, soft skies, golden suns, and peaceful nights, all painted from her heart. Each one was like a little piece of her soul. She hoped someone would see them not just as pictures but as a message. Help me, please. She took a deep breath and whispered, "This has to work." A man walked by. He looked at her for a second. Lila thought he might say something nice. But he didn't. He just kept walking. Lila held on to the edge of the table. Her hands were tight. The sun was warm now. She could feel sweat on her forehead. Her legs felt weak. Her body was reminding her she was still sick. She was tired. She was fighting hard, against her sickness and against the world that didn't see her. At first no one stopped. People walked by, too busy to notice her. One woman in a blue jacket slowed down. She looked at a painting of a purple and orange sky. Lila had worked on that painting for days. She hoped, but then the woman shook her head and walked away. More time passed. Minutes turned into hours. A man wearing sunglasses stopped. He looked at Lila's little sign. It said, "Original art, help me pay for cancer treatment." Then someone spoke. "These are beautiful," a soft voice said. Lila looked up. An old woman stood there. She was smiling gently. She touched one of the paintings very softly like it was something precious. Her eyes didn't show pity. They showed kindness. She pointed to a painting. It showed a desert sky with deep purple and gold. Lila had painted it while listening to soft music. It was one of her favorite ones. "How much is this one?" the old woman asked. Lila's throat felt tight. She swallowed. $80, she said. The old woman turned to her husband. He gave a small nod. We'll take it, she said. Lila didn't move. She had dreamed about this moment, but now it was real. She felt frozen. Then, slowly, the woman handed her the money. Lila wrapped the painting carefully, her hands shaking just a little. As the couple walked away carrying the painting, Lila felt something deep inside her. It wasn't sadness. It was something warm. It was hope. It wasn't enough money. Not yet. But it was a beginning. It was proof that maybe, just maybe, she could do this. The days began to blur together. Every morning, Lila set up her art stand. Her hands still shook from being tired. Her legs ached. But she kept going. People walked past her like she wasn't even there. The city was always in a rush. She was just another girl with a small table. Some people stopped. Most didn't. She sold a few paintings. Not many, but a few. Just enough to keep hope alive in her heart. But it was hard. She counted every dollar carefully. Every sale mattered. Every person who walked away made her heart sink a little more. Some people looked at her sign and gave her sad smiles. But then they walked away. Lila didn't want their sad looks. She didn't want them to feel sorry for her. She didn't want to be the poor sick girl. She didn't want pity. She wanted a chance. A chance to fight. A chance to keep going. And even though it was hard, even though she was scared, Lila Hayes was not done fighting yet. She wanted a chance. And then, something changed. It all started one quiet afternoon. Lila sat at her tiny art stand. She had set it up on the sidewalk like she always did, in the same spot. Not many people were walking by. The busy crowd had slowed down. The noise of the city had gotten softer. The sun was out, but there was a calm in the air, almost like the world was taking a nap. Lila was tired. Her arms felt heavy. Her legs felt like jelly. She was fighting that sleepy, slow feeling that always came in the afternoon. She was about to rest her head on her hand when a woman walked up to her stand. But this woman was different. She wasn't just a person walking by. She wasn't just someone saying, "Oh, pretty colors," and then leaving. No, this woman stopped and really looked. She had a small notebook in her hand. There was a little badge clipped to her bag. The badge said press. That meant she worked for the news or wrote stories for people to read. Her eyes were sharp and curious, moving from one painting to the next like she was looking for something special. "Did you paint all of these?" the woman asked. Lila blinked. She wasn't sure what to say at first. Then she nodded slowly. "Yeah," she said quietly. The woman smiled. It was a nice smile. A warm smile. She pulled out her phone. "I run a small art blog online," she said. "I love finding hidden talent in the city. Mind if I take a few photos?" Lila blinked again. "Wait, what? Really?" she asked, careful like she was dreaming. "Really?" the woman said with a laugh. She took pictures, lots of them. She took photos of the paintings. She took pictures of Lila sitting at her little table. She even took a picture of the small sign Lila had made by hand, the one that told people why she was selling her art. Then the woman asked a question Lila wasn't ready for. "What's your story?" she asked. Lila froze. She didn't know what to say. She had told her story so many times before. To her parents. To doctors. Even to herself in her head. But never like this. Never to a stranger with a notebook and a camera. But the woman's eyes were kind. Her voice was soft. She didn't look like she was trying to be nosy. She looked like she really wanted to listen. So Lila took a deep breath. And she told her. She told her about going to the hospital a lot. She talked about how the bills were so big and scary. She said how painting was the only thing that helped her feel like she could fight back. She told the woman about her parents, how hard they worked, how tired they always looked, how sad Lila felt watching them struggle. She explained how every painting she made wasn't just for fun or for money. It was her way to stay strong. Her way to keep going. The woman listened closely. She nodded and wrote in her notebook. She didn't rush. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. Then she tucked her pen behind her ear and said something Lila would never forget. "People should hear this," she said. "I'll make sure they do." Lila gave a tiny smile. She didn't think much of it. Lots of people said things like that. But most never came back. The next morning, Lila set up her art stand again. But something was different. The wind felt lighter. The noise of the city felt softer. And something else, something Lila couldn't name, was in the air. People were stopping. Not just glancing and walking away. Not just saying, "Oh, how nice," and hurrying off. They were really stopping. By the middle of the morning, Lila had sold 3 paintings. That was more than she had sold the entire week before. A young couple stood in front of her table for a long time, looking at two different paintings. They couldn't decide which one they liked more, so they bought both. A woman in a pretty dress with flowers on it saw a sunset painting and bought it without even asking the price. Felt like a dream. Lila could barely keep up. Then her phone buzzed. It was a message from her best friend, Elliot. "Do check this out." There was a link. Lila hesitated, then clicked it. Her heart jumped. It was an article. The title said, "Fighting for Art, Fighting for Life, the Teen Painting Her Way to Hope." It was her story. Right there on the screen. In big, clear words. Lila read the article. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was beating fast. The writer had put everything in there. The hospital. The bills. The pain. And how she used art to stay strong. At the bottom of the article, there was a number showing how many people had shared it. Hundreds. Then thousands. Lila looked up. The world felt different again. Like a secret door had opened. More people were coming to her stand. They weren't just walking by. They were asking her about her paintings. They were smiling, buying things, saying kind words. A man in a suit, who walked by her every day without ever stopping, was now flipping through her art. A lady asked if Lila could paint something just for her, a special picture made to order. A teenage girl took out her phone and recorded a video of Lila talking about her work. Everything was happening so fast. And then he appeared. At first, Lila didn't even see him. He wasn't loud. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't looking at his phone. He just stood there quiet. He had his hands in his pockets. He wore an old leather jacket. His dark hair fell a little over his face. He didn't look at art like most people. He looked deeper. Like the paintings were telling him something. Lila cleared her throat. "See anything you like?" she asked. The man gave a little smile. It was small but nice. His voice was soft and deep. "Depends," he said. "What's the story behind them?" That's when Lila really looked at him. And her breath stopped. Keanu Reeves. Lila's heart skipped a beat. Was she dreaming? Was she too tired? Was this real? But it was him. Keanu Reeves. The movie star. The kind, quiet, thoughtful person she had seen in movies every weekend. The one people said was super nice. And he was here, standing at her art stand. Lila didn't know what to say. I paint because I have to," she said, her voice shaking. Keanu didn't say anything right away. He just looked at her gently. Lila took a deep breath. "It's the only thing I can control right now," she said. She looked down at her hands. There were still little marks on them from the hospital. "This is how I fight back." Keanu looked at her. His face was calm and kind. Then he picked up one of her paintings. It was a black and white painting. A western scene. A cowboy standing alone on a big empty field. The sky was wide and quiet. Lila had worked on it for weeks. It was one of her favorites. "I'll take this one," Keanu said. Lila blinked. "Oh, okay. It's $200. But Keanu didn't reach for his wallet. He pulled out a checkbook. Lila started. Who even used checkbooks anymore? Keanu opened it slowly like he had all the time in the world. He wrote something down. Then he tore off the check and handed it to her. Lila took it carefully. And then she looked at the number. $200,000. Her breath caught in her throat. Her hands began to shake. The city faded. All the sounds disappeared. This can't be real," she whispered. Keanu smiled again, soft and gentle. "It's not charity," he said. "It's a really good painting." And just like that, in one moment, everything changed. "Now stop for a second. Where are you right now? Sitting on the couch? Watching this on your phone? Maybe drinking a juice box or playing with your pet? Wherever you are, just imagine it. A little art stand. A city sidewalk. People walking, chatting, laughing. And Keanu Reeves, holding a checkbook, smiling kindly, handing a check to a girl who had almost given up. This wasn't just a story. It was her story. And it was just the beginning. Lila Hayes was holding a check for $200,000 like it was the most normal thing in the world. But as she stared at the check, her mind couldn't make sense of what was happening. It wasn't $200. It wasn't $2,000. It was $200,000. Have you ever had a moment where everything around you stops? It's like time itself pauses to wait for you to catch up. That's how Lila felt in that moment. She swallowed hard, her fingers gripping the check tightly. She was scared that if she let go, it would disappear like a dream vanishing when you wake up. Her voice barely worked. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Keanu Reeves tilted his head slightly, a smirk on his face. "Then don't say anything," he said calmly. "Just keep painting." And just like that, with one sentence, everything changed. But here's the wild part. While all this was happening, a famous writer was watching everything unfold. Yes, you heard that right. A well-known novelist, one of those authors whose books you see in airport bookstores and whose words have touched millions, happened to be walking by. Maybe he was out for a stroll, or maybe the universe had brought him at just the right time, but whatever the reason, he stopped in the middle of the sidewalk and watched. Something about that moment shook him deeply. Later, he wrote about it in an essay. He said that seeing Keanu's quiet kindness, Lila's stunned disbelief, and the way the crowd suddenly changed made him realize something important. He learned that art, kindness, and fate are connected in ways we don't always understand. Now here's where you come in. Have you ever witnessed a moment so powerful, so surprising, that it left you speechless? Maybe it was a random act of kindness, a gesture that changed your day. Or maybe, like Lila, it was something that completely changed your life. Whatever it was, hold on to that feeling. Because in that moment, standing there in the middle of the crowd, Lila realized something important. This wasn't just about her anymore. The world was noticing. And things were about to get even crazier. Let me ask you something else. Have you ever had your phone blow up with so many notifications that you couldn't keep up? 1 minute everything's normal, and the next your screen is lighting up non-stop. That's exactly what happened to Lila. The moment Keanu Reeves walked away from her little art stand, everything changed. The world around her was suddenly buzzing. People had already started whispering when they recognized him, but now it was chaos. Someone snapped a photo. Then another. A teenage girl started recording a video, like she was reporting live from a historical event. A businessman who had ignored Lila's stand just minutes before, came back, staring at the check still in her shaking hands. "Wait," he said. "He just bought a painting? For $200,000? A woman gasped. And that was the tipping point. People rushed to her stand. It was like a light bulb went off in their heads. If Keanu Reeves saw something special in Lila's art, maybe they had been missing something. A man in a navy polo grabbed a cityscape painting. "I'll take this one." "How much for this?" he asked, flipping through her canvases in a hurry. Lila barely had time to react. Paintings that had been sitting on the table for days suddenly started flying off the shelves. She had gone from being invisible to being the most important artist on that street. It was a new beginning. Then her phone buzzed. At first, Lila ignored it. She was too busy trying to keep up with the flood of customers. But then it buzzed again. And again. Finally, she glanced down at the screen. Hundreds of notifications. Her best friend Elliot had sent her a link. "Lila, you're viral," he wrote. She clicked on the link and there it was, the article that a journalist had written about her the day before. But now the article has been shared thousands of times. And at the bottom of the article was a photo that was spreading everywhere. Keanu Reeves standing at her booth, holding the black and white Western painting. This was real. This was really happening. By the time Lila packed up her stand that night, she had sold more paintings than she could have ever imagined. Her inbox was full of messages. People wanting commissions, interview requests, even a gallery in New York reaching out. And the craziest part? This wasn't even the peak of her story. This was just the beginning. Have you ever woken up one morning and realized that your entire world had changed overnight? Like, everything you thought you knew had been turned upside down? That's exactly what happened to Lila. The day after Keanu bought her painting, Lila woke up to find her phone exploding with messages. Not just a few, hundreds of notifications. Her inbox was flooded. Social media was buzzing. The article about her had gone completely viral. At first, Lila thought it was all a mistake. Maybe she was still dreaming, still caught in the exhaustion of the day before. But no, this was real. Her name was everywhere. Hollywood star Keanu Reeves buys a teen's painting for $200,000. The headline read. You won't believe why, how a small art stand and a big gesture changed a young artist's life. Every major news outlet had picked up the story. Twitter was flooded with hashtags. Instagram was overflowing with shares of the now iconic image of Keanu holding Lila's painting. The video of the moment had over 3 million views. And then something even bigger happened. She almost missed it, buried beneath all the other messages, but when she clicked on it, her breath caught. A prestigious art gallery in New York wanted to represent her. Lila's hands trembled as she read the message. They wanted to showcase her work in an upcoming exhibition. They called her story remarkable, and her paintings a reflection of resilience and raw emotion. Lila sat there, staring at the screen, trying to process everything. Just days ago, she had struggled to sell a single painting. Now, people from all over the world wanted to buy her work. They wanted to support her, celebrate her. And most importantly, Lila could finally pay for her remaining chemotherapy treatments. That afternoon, Lila walked into the hospital, check in hand, and paid off every single bill. No more late notices. No more watching her parents try to hide their exhaustion. No more fear of what would happen if the money ran out before her treatments were finished. It was over. As she sat in the treatment chair for what would be her final round of chemo, Lila didn't feel scared. For the first time in a long time, she had a future waiting for her. A future she had painted herself. Have you ever held on to something, not because of its price but because of what it meant? Because it carried a story, a memory, a moment that changed everything? For Lila Hayes, that something was a painting. Not just any painting, the first one she had ever sold. The black and white Western landscape. The one Keanu Reeves had picked up that afternoon when everything changed. Weeks had passed since that day. Lila had finished her chemotherapy. The hospital bills were gone. Her inbox was overflowing with commission requests. And in just a few days, she would be flying to New York for her first ever gallery exhibition. It didn't feel real. Even as she packed her bags, even as she stared at the email confirming her flights, even as she stood in front of the mirror looking at a girl who had fought harder than she ever thought possible, it still felt like a dream. And then a letter arrived. Not an email, not a text, a handwritten letter. When Lila saw the sender's name, her breath caught. Keanu Reeves. Her hands trembled as she carefully unfolded the letter. The words were written in strong, deliberate handwriting. Lila, your fight reminds me why some stories still matter. Never stop telling yours. That was it. Simple. Powerful. A reminder that this was only the beginning. Lila pressed the letter to her chest and closed her eyes for a moment, letting it all sink in. That night, she did what she had always done. She picked up a brush. The paint glided over the canvas effortlessly. Her strokes were confident, deliberate. She wasn't painting for survival anymore. She was painting because it was who she was. And there was one painting Lila would never sell. The first one. The Western landscape. Because that painting now hangs in Keanu Reeves' private collection. A permanent reminder that sometimes the smallest moments, a glance, a pause, or a single decision can change the course of a life forever. Lila Hayes? She was just getting started. If you like this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.